Hello and welcome to the Waterford Sportsability Podcast, brought to you in association by Waterford Sports Partnership and with the support of Healthy Ireland. I am Pauline Casey, Sports Inclusion Disability Officer with Waterford Sports Partnership, and today I am being joined by Kate Veale, Irish Race Walking Champion. We are going to talk to Kate about the struggles she has faced in her sporting career so far and what the focus is for 2020. Very much for joining us today on our podcast series. You're very welcome. Kate is Irish Race Walking Champion, and we're going to hear a little bit about Kate's story, how sport has impacted on Kate's life and maybe some of the challenges she has faced over the last number of years as well. So Kate, you're very welcome here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So Kate, just give us a brief overview, I suppose, of your career in sport and where it's at the minute.
Yeah, well, I feel like I've been at all ends of the spectrum, I suppose, and around at the very, very top and to the very, very bottom. But basically, I got a love for athletics and running when I was young. I suppose I got that maybe from my family, joined my club, and just loved running. The freedom of it just gave me an outlet. The amount of positives, I suppose, and it's something that I nearly go back to now, is like the love that I had as a child, for it, I suppose. And then kind of started getting serious at maybe 12, 13. And from like maybe 13 to 18, had some really good years where, every year was progressing. And I suppose got some youth and junior records, won World Youth in 2011, went to Youth Olympics, and everything was going great. And I kind of was, looking then at, senior after that and thinking in my head that, this is the way it's going to go in a linear curve. And then got an injury in 2012, and I suppose... everything felt like it came crashing down. I started college then that year as well, and so then I went from kind of one extreme to the other, I suppose.
Okay.
And then
so an injury to your career, that must have had detrimental effects to yourself, your routine, your lifestyle. Everything was starting to change for you when you're so used to training.
Yeah.
And that one thing is taken away. So how did that feel?
I suppose, for me, hindsight's a great thing, and I've learned a lot. And as you get older, I suppose you learn as well. I thought I knew it all back when I was 18, and I couldn't. I wasn't. I suppose because I was, getting success all the time, everything was going well. I was very, very particular with everything I did. Very, very rigid. And then when I got the injury, I suppose I wasn't able to deal with that adversity and couldn't handle it and didn't know what to do. And I suppose I put all my identity and everything into my athletics, and I think wanted it so bad that I lost the true nature of it, and I lost kind of the love for it in a way. It became quite toxic because it became about performance. I went from winning World Youths to the following year going to World Juniors. And on the preview, I remember on World Athletics on the website and stuff, they had been on about me because the year before, I suppose I was maybe a bit of a surprise because there was a Russian girl second, a Chinese girl third, who were a big powerhouse of walking. And I remember in that race, finishing 18th, so going from first in the world to 18th, and even that couldn't deal with that. The cracks were beginning to appear all that year. Had the injury, but kind of pushed through pain, ignored it, pretended it wasn't there, kind of, and it was just it's mad now looking back how you can't just keep ploughing on and thinking everything will be okay when there is stuff there. You have to get it sorted, because that's what eventually it was crash and burn. And I'll never forget that race. It was just a mad moment, I suppose. But and then kind of hated athletics.
Okay.
And it was a bad attitude, I suppose, because it was if I can't go out and win, I don't want to do it,
And I suppose that comes from the success that you've had.
Yeah.
You knew no different.
Yeah.
And this was a learned process that when you were so used to winning that you didn't know how to handle defeat, maybe.
Yeah, and it felt like a failure. So for me, things had to be kind of perfect. And I suppose, some people say, it was talent. And maybe I had a flair for race walking, but I really, really pushed so much into it from a young age. I kind of... My lifestyle was kind of like a senior athlete, from a young age, and even my coaches used to try to get me to be a bit more chilled and a bit more, a bit more rounded. But I suppose, as I said, it was kind of in my bubble, and I was prepared to do anything, And then when sport was taken away from me, I was like, I felt like I was nothing without it, I suppose.
Yeah. So that whole piece of sport was taken away from you. So how did you deal with that? Or I suppose we're going down the path of where things got pretty bad for you.
Yeah.
So would you mind taking us through that, or how that happened? And
so basically at the start I ignored it all. I thought I was, because you see, it's living up to that image of, because I was kind of known by my friends, by my family, by people in race walking, by fellow athletes, that I was the strong one and I was the one. They would have looked to me like maybe a leader role, and I liked that, to influence or to help, or to be. I was the one that would help the others, or I was the one who was kind of the strong.
You were the go-to. They were looking towards you.
And I didn't show. I would have back then seen things as a sign of weakness, because I was kind of like, this is sport. It's cruel. It's tough, and it is survival of the fittest. And if you're weak and you're not able for it, I had maybe a harsh view on it. I was like, you kind of like, shape up or ship out kind of a thing. I was like, if you can't handle it, just that's the way it is. There's no room for, I suppose, error. There's no room for, I was seeing it as, well, weakness, kind of a thing. Yeah. So then to me, when I did have the cracks appear and I did feel off and weird, I would ignore it and pretend it was okay. And but and eventually then it just became, I suppose, all too much. And then it was like a massive, just a massive, blow, eventually, because I think you have to, obviously, as do things differently now, but at the time it was just, you have to plough on, you have to get on with it, you have to be strong, and that was the way I would have thought about things.
Yeah. So I suppose in 2012 then you would have fell out of competing.
Yeah. So
I suppose tell us a little bit about that. And
so it was funny, the year before I actually qualified as well for European cross country as a junior, and that was quite I went from walking all summer and to running. Won national cross country. Everything was going really well. And what happened then when I started getting injury, it was funny, like nearly psychologically, it made me work harder. It made me kind of be like, oh, you just have to be stronger, go harder. I wasn't even listening to my coach doing extra miles. It was like I wouldn't lay off I kind of became, I suppose it's an addiction really, and you had to get the miles in, and I was in so much pain, but it didn't matter to me. I was just like, I have to get this done.
And in a particular way, maybe.
Yeah, so it's funny how your head can be a good thing and a bad thing. It can be good because I'm really, I have a high pain threshold, and I'm really able to put myself through that pain barrier and able to get on with stuff, but eventually you can't, hide from those kind of things. So then when I got the injury, was doing some rehab and stuff, things weren't getting better, and the injury wasn't getting better, and then I just kind of threw the towel into it all, I suppose. And then it would have been quite good in school before, and then I started going to college, not like as in failing things in college, and it was just like everything around my life, because I put everything at the time, all my friends, everything I did, it was all athletics.
Everything was associated with that sport, and things started to crumble a little bit.
And it was a bit of an obsession, or a bit of a, for me it was like, if I want to be the best in the world, I have to just and it was probably a bad thing, but at the time I said I had to be 100%, everything has to be, every choice I made, every decision, 24/7 on my mind, everything was what'll make me a better athlete, what'll make, and I suppose I never switched off from that. It was very, very intense. Yeah.
So when you went to college then, you went into Limerick. Am I right in thinking you went in on a scholarship programme
into Dublin, so DCU.
Or DCU, DCU. And were you running with them at the time, or were you?
Yeah, so I was tried to, but no, I didn't compete. I did that race in World Juniors in Barcelona in 2012. I did one more race because I was down to do it in Amsterdam in September, and that was the September I started college, and then I didn't race again until 2014 or something, or actually no, it was after that. It was 2015. Yeah.
So between 2012 and 2015, so that's a 3-year gap. Okay. I suppose, how did you get from 2012 to 2015, and I suppose what support did you get to get you back into race walking and running and exercise? I suppose even taking away the competitive side, what got you back exercising, and what made you go back exercising? Yeah,
it became a thing where I had to just sort out my health and well-being, I suppose, because things were getting worse and worse. I was, as I said, pretending I was fine, pretending there was nothing wrong. My parents knew, my coach knew, people around me knew, and eventually then it's kind of like, I do need help, and because I wasn't really sure, didn't have an understanding of myself. Everything was, before there was no kind of like awareness of things, or I didn't let myself, I suppose, feel, or let myself, because I had this real, even kind of like emotionless, I suppose.
I suppose you were so focused and so driven on what it is you wanted to achieve.
Nothing would get in my way.
Pain, you blocked out your emotions. You blocked out how you were feeling and that as well.
Exactly. So everything was blocked out, and I nearly at the time thought that was the way that I needed to be and that things were done, and it worked for a certain amount of time, I suppose. But then it was a really weird sensation when I did start to feel, and when things were not right, and I couldn't even explain it. I didn't even know what was, and then your behaviours are not you kind of. I felt like a completely different person. My behaviours aren't me, my actions aren't me, and then you're turning into someone that you kind of hate, I suppose, or that doesn't feel like you. And eventually, so I had to go to a sports psychologist, and even it took her a long time to kind of crack me and get into it. And I remember saying I needed to go to like just a normal like psychologist, and I was like kind of that go to just a normal psychologist, see what's going on. And I was kind of doing the rehab a bits and pieces at the time, and still trying to always just push through, but I was getting nowhere. I was literally going around in circles, and when I was out in training, I didn't have no interest in it, but I was just pushing myself to do it, but hating it, but just getting out because I felt like I had to do it. Wasn't getting anywhere with it, and I suppose comparing myself to what I was, and there was just so much, I suppose, going on, and it was so weird for me because my coach had been coaching me for a few years, and kind of never would have seen me. One time we were out training, and like my leg, I suppose my head and my body just would not even move for me, and I remember just starting crying. It was so weird for me. I was so embarrassed, and he came over and gave me a hug, and it was one of those moments that I just remember, because even he was like, oh my god, she can cry, kind of a thing, and then I was like, yeah, I do need to, because I knew I didn't feel right, I suppose, and couldn't put a finger on it really. I had lost, I suppose, as I said, really, really tried to kind of keep pushing on, wanted to be the person, was so confused, why am I not me? I didn't feel, I suppose, me, and I felt so alone that I was the only athlete who ever kind of had these feelings, or the only person, and I thought no one would understand me, or I think
that's a very common thing for anyone that may have mental health difficulties, that they always feel like it's only me, why is this me, there's no one else like me, and that sense of alone. So how did you get, I suppose you have a huge family support, a huge network of friends, a huge network of coaches that are supporting you. How did you break that feeling of aloneness to knowing that they were there to support you?
Yeah, that was a massive thing. I really felt like I was insane. I was like, I'm the only person, because I was like, couldn't even understand myself, so I was like, how can anyone else understand, or whatever. And then as I said, people did see that I was, different, or that I wasn't happy, but again, you just try to, and then eventually, I'm so lucky that I had that support, that it was kind of like, oh, it's okay to, I suppose that thing of it's okay not to be okay, it's okay to, ask for help, and, this isn't you can, go and kind of like what I would say, sort myself out. Or see, when I went to college, then there was, I was very, very disciplined with everything when I was training, and then started drinking in college. As I said, started not going to class, started eating awful food, and all that stuff has such a knock-on negative effect, and it's like you're searching. I would have got such a high and a thrill from training and pushing my body, and it really is a really good feeling. And then when I couldn't get that from that, I was searching for other places to get that kind of to get that buzz, I suppose, because I needed to get that high, and the places you get in are all the wrong places, and it might seem fine at the time. And it was funny because some people were saying, oh, you're just growing up, and it's fine, you're just doing normal things, you're going out for college, you were always so disciplined, so don't be hard on yourself. And it's kind of like, yeah, but they don't see you the next day, and you can be life and so the party, you can put on the brave face, and you're able to kind of fake it for a little while, but they don't, see you. And then everything, I was just not right doing anything. And just my day-to-day life
it's never
couldn't function.
It's hidden, and we don't see it, and a lot of the times it is hidden. And it's exactly what you were saying, that you went out, you put on your party face, had a great time, but it was the next day that people didn't see. So what were those next days like?
Look, then 3 years are the biggest nearly blur in one way, because it was just the weeks went into months, and the months went into years, and it was just awful. I can't even describe it, because at the time I really couldn't see a way out. I was looking back, it's kind of mad how bad I let things, get, and how I felt then, how I thought there was no kind of, I couldn't see how I was ever going to improve, I suppose, And then when I went to that psychologist, she was like, the way she, again, kind of really broke me down to things. And I was like, I'm just going to try and be some bit honest. And it was just like a mad moment when she said, okay, we're going to actually like admit you to hospital. And I was kind of like, you know, for more assessments. And that was a, you know, because to me...
Was that a shock to you to think that it was gone to that stage?
Definitely. Now I have a completely different outlook on mental health. But back then, I did have that, like, I am not, you know, kind of one of those kind of a thing. Or it was I had a bad attitude, I suppose, to it. And it was a bit of a...
And that probably comes back to the stigma that's probably associated with it as well. And I suppose the fact that you had this identity, particularly in Waterford and particularly in athletics, that you nearly feel like everyone around you knows your business. Yeah,
that was, and like I remember trying to hide it. I told people in college that I was at home and told people at home that I was staying in college, you know, and to try and hide it and stuff. Because, you know, like it's so weird when in the space of say a year or the year before I was training and say, you know, competing against, like as I said, some of the best in the world, and you know, we would have had the attitude that like the likes of the Chinese and the Russians and these big kind of like race walking countries they're really, really tough and driven. And I remember in the race when I won World Youths, it was like in my head it was like, you know, I can hurt more than you, I'm going to be tougher than you, you know, this kind of like attitude. So it's just kind of weird. A year later where I was, it was like the complete opposite, you know. And I suppose at the start I didn't look after my mental health. I didn't, you know, even look at strategies or tools, or because I thought
you were nearly invincible.
That I didn't need to. Yeah, that was it.
I had this structure and such a routine.
That's exactly.
Everything was so disciplined that I suppose you never really anticipated getting an injury, or it kind of came out of nowhere. So there was no preparation for that.
Yeah.
So you were admitted to hospital. You got supports. You got some help. Tell me how you got back into sport. So I suppose sport was nearly the cause of the mental health difficulty that you faced. But is it part of your recovery now and part of your life now?
Definitely. It's funny, like sport was literally the best thing and the worst thing in my life kind of a thing. And the same I would say with my mind. It's like my best friend and my worst enemy, you know, and I've learned so much. So like basically the first 3 years, it was still messy. I wouldn't say like I went into hospital, I came out and everything was fine. They wanted to readmit me. They tried different things. I eventually went on medication, which I at the start was so stubborn, you know. At the start I was quite stubborn with it all. And then like, you know, it was kind of like they throw all these things at you. So they said like I had depression, anxiety, I was diagnosed with an eating disorder, and I was like, oh my god, I have all these kind of like, and I think sometimes it's hard maybe to be labelled in a way, because it's kind of a spectrum of, you know, everyone can have some depression or some anxiety, or, you know, in athletics, people, I feel, I now like look to come across that a lot of them have, you know, not maybe an eating disorder, but disordered eating. So it kind of shows everything can be, you know, nothing's ever black and white, and everything can be kind of good, you know, it can be
and the word
good for you and bad, you know,
And I think that's a really important word, and it's something that we definitely talk about within the world of disability. Why should someone be labelled? And who gives somebody else the authority or the right to label you into a certain category or put you into a box? And that's something that we're trying to get away from. So how did that feel to have three things coming at you and nearly put into these three little boxes?
And you kind of feel a bit broken or a bit of a mess, or like, you know, is this just going to be me forever? And as I said, you don't really see a way out, but like eventually you you know, you start kind of, I suppose, getting more tools, you're learning about yourself, I think is the thing. You're learning about even the brain and how it works, and how kind of, you know, as I said, I learned, kind of was at the time really hating myself. So you have to kind of like, you learn the good things about you and the bad things about you, you know. So as I said, like so all these things basically, so at the time, now after only recently enough, I actually was diagnosed with ADHD. So the thing is, that feels like to me the root of the other stuff. At the time it was very hard for me, because I kind of was like, I'm not like depressed, I'm actually really motivated when things are right for me, but I get down, I really have the highs and the lows, because I'm really passionate when I'm racing, I'm a really aggressive racer. But I can get really but I was like, I'm not, you know, I couldn't really, I suppose, fully say like I had anxiety either, because I think everyone has a bit of anxiety, and I think, you know, there's good nerves before a race. Like I remember, before a race, I'm tying my shoes. I remember one time I'm literally shaking, but I love that. And is that anxiety or is it not? When it's in the, you know, when it's in a certain circumstance,
it's adrenaline. It's the feeling.
You know,
it's like, you know,
I'm literally before a race, I'm like this shaking, but I love that feeling because I know I'm ready to race. Where, you know, so I was not. I still. Them few years were a bit messy, and what happened was then I was actually in getting there, started back training, And was like, okay, I'm going to try and make, because I'm going to try and make Rio Olympics. That was 2016. So 2014 started training, and kind of, as I said, did go through a good period of understanding things a lot better and managing things a lot better. And then I was training and things were going okay, and I missed my period, and for me that was kind of normal when I do train, because before that I didn't get it till I was even 18. Sorry, probably too much information. I think when you're in athletics, we're all wicked open, even with all the lads I train with, like just everything is just so open, and I love that now, because now we are so open with everything. And I think that's I think in Ireland it's awful that some people have like shame and guilt, and it's all like taboo subjects, and whereas I think everything now should be just
and it's to talk about these things and get rid of the taboo. So tell me,
so basically I wouldn't have got it when I was training hard anyway, so I didn't see it as anything. I was like, oh, this it's funny, it's kind of weird how even though this is a bad thought and it's not healthy to not be getting it, but in my head I was like, oh, this is good, because you see, when I don't get it, that means my body is being pushed to its limit, because it's not able to have a period. So to me, I was like, yeah, this is good, because my body now I'm training to my limit. I'm
getting back on track. Things are starting to come right,
kind of thing. And then miss a second one. It was maybe 3 months then, and I was like, and then I was feeling sick. I was getting sick after training. Thought that was probably good. I was like, I'm obviously going to newer heights of fitness, I thought, but I wasn't feeling good at all. I was still in college, and I went to the doctor, and I never in my life taken like a pregnancy test or had any pregnancy scare, and then I found out I was pregnant, so that was another, and I was quite late when I found out, and I'd still been taking the pill. So when I found out I was pregnant, the next day I was like straight into hospital and got a scan done. So I went from like one day out training, and then the next day like literally seeing a scan, and that was like even,
and
my God.
And how far along were you gone at that stage, Kate?
So it was 3 and a bit months. Yeah, 3 and a bit months.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you were 3 and a bit months, not knowing you were pregnant, training hard, pushing on, had all these effects going on.
And at the time it was just oh my God, what am I going to do? It was just another mad. But then hindsight again, it's like, oh, something's happened for a reason, and it was the best thing for me.
And how did you deal with that? So you were from 2012 to 2014. You were going through different treatment plans. Things were really starting to come good. Training was coming good, and then this happened, and you said you were back in that situation, going, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So how did you cope with that initially?
So initially, I suppose initially you just kind of freaked out about it. Like I remember going to an exam in college, and I was getting sick into the bush, and just like telling one of my friends, and she was like, oh, it was a mad, time. And I still didn't really know what to do, because I kind of felt that I wasn't really fully right myself. I was like, how am I ever going to be able to like look after a child, because I felt like I was a mess still, I was needed to sort myself out. But then you just kind of get on with it, I suppose, and
was it a blessing, really?
Yeah, definitely. Looking back, it was, it's going to be, it was like, I was like saying, I was messing with someone the other day, so I can't wait to be telling her all the stories when she's 16 or 17 or 18, because now it's obviously, it was just meant to be, it's one of those things. It's like, I don't know, the like law of attraction or the universe or these kind of things, they're just meant to happen, definitely,
Yeah, and that was maybe your saviour, and maybe that was your...
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So I feel the chances of like getting pregnant were, slim, because I was taking, it was just... because I was taking the pill and stuff, it was just like the chance of it happening. So definitely, looking back, it's like...
Am I right in thinking in 2014, early 2015, you had your child, yeah?
So I had her in the 7th of January 2015,
And you were very quickly back into training and racing.
Yeah, so then it's kind of, that really changed my perspective. Like, it's funny in life, I think you have all these little moments that are kind of like these standout moments that you're like, I don't know, like the moments that are meant to happen, or like, certain people that you're meant to meet, or certain experiences that you're meant to have that kind of change your perspective. Because then my perspective changed, and I kind of got into just, I felt like looking at the world, I suppose, in a different way, or, and I kind of learned that, the world is just your perception, or how you see things, or the stories you tell yourself, the shoulda, the coulda, the wouldas. And I got back into athletics, enjoying it. It took me a few months to get back. I actually had, when I was pregnant, my hip again, which was the injury that was at me before, my pelvis was quite bad when I was pregnant and after having her. So that was that took a while to heal. And what happened was, then I couldn't really race walk on it, so I started running, and then I trained for the Dublin Marathon. I did some road races. I started in road racing, and I knew the Olympics were and then the funny thing was, in 2016, maybe mentally, there was the highs and lows as well, because there was the whole shoulda, coulda, wouldas again, the whole thing of the Olympics friends and girls that I would have raced against, that I would have beaten, that did really well in the Olympics, and you question myself all the time, that should be me, or and really feeling guilty and feeling bad.
So you talk about ups and downs and highs and lows, and obviously when we're on those ups, life is great and we're all happy, but it's the lows and it's dealing with them. And have you a strategy in place to deal with the lows that you might face on a daily basis, or whenever they do appear?
So for me now, it's just for me, being around good people makes such a difference, so for me, as I said, the lads I train with and certain people, I think being around that environment, is key, the people that you hang around with, and to be able to question things and not just go along with, say, society or the way people think it should be done this way, or you should do this, you shouldn't do this thing. People have to be true to themselves and really kind of a lot of people don't really know themselves, I feel, and they just kind of sail through life, and I don't know, are they really happy, so it's really nice to have a purpose and to feel fulfilled, I suppose. So for me, being around good people, and I suppose now I'm a lot more chilled and a lot more, I'm not so black and white. I was very, very black and white all or nothing before. Now I just see things from a different perspective. And then for me, just lots of different things. Like for me, putting things into action. People think, I'm a real motivated, disciplined person. And I'm like, no, I'm not. But I just depends on the type of person. I need routine, and I need kind of a good lifestyle. And I see the knock-on effect of if I drink, say for example, how I am the next day. So for me, everything has to be nearly a cost-benefit analysis of the pros and the cons, and everything's the choices you make. There's a knock-on effect, positive or negative. For me, certain, the foods you eat, or the daily actions. I find if you have a good morning routine and set yourself up, you go, and obviously it's not perfect. There's plenty of days where again I kind of go back into old thinking patterns and old habits, but for also things like mindfulness and meditation was good for me, because I was always I had to be doing stuff all the time, quite hyperactive.
Learning to switch off.
Found it really hard to switch off. And at times the hardest part for me is actually nearly getting the recovery from training. As my coach, so the lads we were on camp, they nap in the middle of the day and stuff, and they sleep all night. And for me, I'd be wired at night at
And does that go back to the recent diagnosis of your ADHD, and having that now, probably a lot of things make a lot more sense to you, that this is why I am this way.
That's exactly.
You know what? That's okay.
Yeah, that's the massive thing is getting a proper diagnosis, and for someone to say there's reasons, or this is why, and learning and understanding, and then I suppose what maybe triggers you, what's good for you, and what's not right for you. And I think it's different for everyone. You have to really find that yourself, what works for you. So for me, I really need to focus on trying to relax, and because things like when I don't get enough sleep, things like injury is increased, or you're not able to train to your full potential. And then so definitely, and seeing it as I nearly see the ADHD as a personality trait more than I know it's kind of seen as a disorder, but
and it's part of you. It's part of your lifestyle, and it's learning then to center yourself through your yoga, your meditation, and learning how to switch
definitely off. Being at nature, in nature and stuff like that for me is good. Switching off from social media and connecting to I know some of this sounds really hippie, I go kind of stuff, but kind of centering yourself.
And, I suppose having that little bit of self-awareness, which is something you probably didn't have before you had that injury, and
awareness
making yourself
is massive.
Aware of your feelings, your emotions, and how your body is actually feeling. If your body is aching, it's telling you need to take that break. Are you inclined to take those breaks and listen to that a bit more?
There's time, listen to it a little bit more. It's kind of really, what do I need right now, or if you are going off back to kind of that kind of addictive personality where certain things, it's kind of okay, what do I really need? What is this? What am I trying to actually fulfill? What am I, and I think having connections with people is massive as well for me. Having good connections where now I'm so open and honest, and we're all, and it's so good. And then that really gives the people I train with, they're the same with me, and it gives everyone, and that's a massive, just to feel that's a massive weight lifted off. I think a lot of people are that, again, the shame or the embarrassment or the because I do know that for me, the type of brain I have or whatever, when I race, I go into this space of this nearly hyper focus, and I'm able to, I know I can nearly outperform, so for me I see the advantages, I suppose, of it. And I remember actually a psychiatrist recently saying to me, because I was kind of worried about it, saying, oh, I'll never be able to, function properly. Will I ever be, say, cured or whatever? Do you know? But it's just accepting it and knowing that everyone's on a spectrum. And, she said to me that, like, you can learn and develop, skills and strategies and learn about yourself, and to get, what she might call a neurotypical type brain. But she was like, she said, other people will never ever be able to get that type of, say, focus or the depth that you can really take yourself. So that's, for me, I think my type of brain can make me or let me hurt in a race and stuff, which is such an advantage. And that's a massive, I take so much confidence from that, even when I'm maybe not the fittest going in, because I miss training because of injury, which I have done the last year or so. I know going into a race that I can, go dig deep. I feel that, and that's a massive confidence for me. I really,
The openness that you spoke about, having that openness, you're saying really helped you. I would probably feel that within a group of people, you've been so open, it's actually probably going to help someone else in that group that may be hiding something else that is going on. Because we always talk about these hidden disabilities, mental health, ADHD, there's lots of them out there. So I think that's probably a support to someone else within the group.
Yeah, definitely. And now even everyone's understanding of things is better when one person opens up and talks about things. Because at the start, I remember telling the lads that they were all laughing, like, and there is the joke, and I was joking about it myself, so it does get like the slagging of, like, when I do certain things, they're like, oh, that's your, or like on camp, when I could go on my little rants about life at like 11 at night, and they all want to go to bed, and they're like, oh, that ADHD brain needs to shut off. Or they laugh and joke about, like, the types of some of my I suppose some of the things I do. But the other thing is, they actually people are ignorant to, they don't understand these conditions and they don't know them, so they think depression is this, they think anxiety is this, or they think an eating disorder is this. Like, one with the eating disorder was a lot at the time, it's by how you look. So if you're not like this, in sport there is a lot of problem with, being anorexic and this stick kind of thin image, and they have an eating disorder. But an eating disorder can be, as well as males, that we don't even...
Absolutely, the whole body image.
And it can be every type of body shape and figure can have an eating disorder, whereas people before think, oh, you don't look like you have an eating disorder.
It's perception. It's this thing about perceptions. We should never perceive someone to be a certain way by what they look like, by their culture, by their background, by the car they drive. And it's trying to get rid of that perception. And I suppose that's the same thing for everybody, isn't it? Really?
That's a massive, and people just understanding things a lot more, and being open to learning about these things, I suppose, and that, sometimes there is reasons that people act a certain way, so just being more understanding. And I think that thing of like compassion and being loving and kind and all these kind of things just go such a a long way if you can be a bit more like that, I think, instead of this harsh kind of world, I suppose, that we live in.
Definitely. Tell me, Kate, we're now in 2020. Tell me a little bit about your training, where we're at now, what's our focus, and where are we heading for?
So 2016, it was actually a really nice one. So it brought me to, I did the marathon with my dad, and that was the last marathon he did, and that was, again, another, like, brought sport back to the core of what, what sport should be, I suppose. And then in 2017, started race walking a bit, and 2018, it took me a long time to get back, and there was lots of ups and downs and lots of kind of like, times when I had to, because when one thing goes wrong for me, everything can go wrong, and I really self-sabotage, it's kind of like if one of my tires is blown, I'll just go and slash the other three, kind of a thing, and I have to still really work on that. And then Rob Heffernan started coaching me then in 2018, 19 kind of. So last year then it was, I suppose it was my first year of seeing maybe a bit more progress, and I went to European Cup and I went to World University Games, and then in December, as I said, qualified for World Cup, which was meant to be in May. So that year, it was kind of like, things are, as we were always saying, this is only the start. This is just the first year of, because when I went to these races, I wasn't like competitive like for medals. It was more, which I found hard as well, but I had to accept that.
Yes.
That, okay,
haven't been able to sport for that long.
I'm here and I'm competing, but I'm not competing for medals. And before, it was always in a race, I'm there to win. So that's another, it's just have to change your mentality for everything and your expectations, and accept where you're at, and be patient and, consistent and all that. And then, So in March then, when all this, I suppose the virus came, that was another, it definitely was a challenge. And I think, look, I wasn't the only one who was challenging for everything, but I was distraught, I suppose, at the time, because you make all these choices and you think, oh, things are going well and this and that, and you're like, oh, can't kind of believe it was happening. But now looking back again, I think for everyone, no matter what, whether they're into sport or not, they've, it's, I suppose, change people's perspectives and put things in perspective, and made people aware of what's actually important in life, I suppose. So that's definitely taught me, and I see with the lads as well I train with, they were just down the weekend, all of them are in the same, and everyone's in the same boat, everyone was affected, and it's kind of really, it just shows, I think it's always how you deal with the things that happen to you. It's really about mindset.
You see lots of ups and downs, and I suppose that's something that you really learned to face and learned, I suppose, to deal with as well, that you're even seeing now there's still ups and downs where you're training really hard, you're set for your event, COVID comes in that no one would have ever predicted, and then training's put on hold again. Now you're back at the stage where you're training again, so you're training for a big event in January.
So when COVID came first, like it's some of the lads, and it's funny as well though, another thing is, and with social media is great, it can be good because I follow some really, really interesting and good people, but it can be destructive too, because you're looking at other people and you're thinking, it's like the grass isn't always greener to the side. You're comparing how you feel inside kind of they're outside, and you're thinking, and I would be saying with the lads, like, oh sure, they just have it all together, they have everything, their stuff organised, and they keep it together, and they don't they don't suffer from any of this stuff. And it's only when you actually, and from their social medias, everyone would think, oh, they're just it has no effect on them. And it's only when you, and the same was massive, what I learned so much from Rob was the amount of struggles that he had, and it's kind of, sometimes he'd say stuff to me during a race or during training or after training, certain things, he'd like know how I was feeling, and I used to find that really mad, that, oh my god, you actually understand it and you get it. And he's like, you're not the only one. You're not the only one, basically, because I felt I was just mental or something myself, like strange, and no one else. And I could not believe some of the stories that he told me from when he was, because I suppose I would have put him on a pedestal and thought he just is nothing gets in, and it's so not true, and it just shows everybody, no matter who they are, has their issues and their struggles, and but then like that, where like everyone coming together and I think being open about it and just helping each other, that's just a massive kind of a massive effect on everybody.
Would you have a message for anyone out there that might be listening, who may be struggling, who may be questioning themselves, whose training might have gone by the wayside because of COVID? Is there anything you can say to them to help them, to motivate them, or any advice you give them?
I think just like people as well sometimes are looking for this, like these big kind of like that there's these magic things that happen, or this, and it's not, like, it's actually the simplest of things that can make you feel better. We think that I think, I know I do as well, I want to go from A to Z straight away instead of going from A to B. So it's just all and I know it kind of sounds really like cliche and kind of cringy, but it literally is the simple steps. And if you can change one thing, and then the knock-on effect then of that, and then next week change another thing, and I think little steps, because sometimes we see them like a mountain and it's just it can be overwhelming and it can seem too much, so it's like little things, even saying, okay, I'm going to get up at 8 o'clock every morning this week, and at that time from 8 to half 8 I'm going to do some form of activity, and it might be yoga, or it might be just a morning routine, I think, and really set you up for the day, and finding what works for you. Someone asked me recently, they were saying, oh, do you pray? And I was like, no. I was like, I don't pray, but I'm actually spiritual. Like I'd say, kind of like manifestations, or it's kind of, I was like, to me that's prayer, as like where, or you like have gratitude in the morning, like it's like what you appreciate or what you're grateful for, something that you want to get out of the day, or the person that you want to be. It's kind of like, I think in the morning, what can I do today to make me a better person, and then not be too hard on yourself when there is slip-ups, because accepting that there will be, I suppose people can be very, very hard on themselves and think that everything is lost because this happens. So I think and then like it's just the basic things of like your nutrition, your hydration, your sleep, and then movement, and it doesn't have to be, people think it has to be, it depends what movement suits you. You can, as I said, it could be just yoga, it could be just a walk, but and I think you have to put the actions in place and then you feel better. Sometimes people think they nearly accept how they feel and like, oh, this. And I know that's the times you don't want to do anything, like you don't, but you kind of just have to do something to get yourself out of that mindset. And for me, I think when I get too much in my head, and that's why I struggle really with injury. When I can't walk, I used to freak out about it, but then I realise when I'm sore and I can't walk, I can still swim, I can go on the bike, I can do different types of movements. So it's just like getting out of your head and into your body. I think doing something with your body and being more aware of your body is like exercise. I know I'm biased, but exercise is just I think like the most under kind of used, I suppose. It's kind of like a drug, I think, really, if people could put it into a pill, what it does, for mentally, physically, everything, and the social aspect, try and kind of, I suppose, meet up with a friend maybe and use it as a social thing. And I think it is hard at the start, like any change is hard. But I think it's harder to stay stuck where you are, so like it's kind of like, what kind of hard do you want, and
you have to kind of choice that you want to make. And I suppose the key message there really is, no matter what the activity, no matter what the level, just move.
Yeah, that's it. Like, because it's funny. That's another thing I learned. So, and we were already talking about this. I remember Rob saying to me, he's like, his first Olympics, he woke up the next day like depressed because he had put everything in to get into this Olympics, and he woke up the next day and said, I was the same person. And he said, I came home and it was just awful. And I was like, and he said, it's funny, I had to put on the brave face because everyone back home was like, you're an Olympian, you've been, and it's, and he was like, I just felt so low, and I don't, and that's the interesting thing as well, that you can get so much satisfaction and joy when you're at your level, whatever it may be. Like humans, I think, are naturally competitive, and I think it's great so whatever level that is, or whatever little goal that you set, you can get as much like joy and satisfaction out of that than someone who's trying to go to the Olympics,
and that's everyone's own ability and what their goals are.
And when you are at your ability, you can get, and even better benefits, because I find, as I said, sometimes the high performance type sport can be quite toxic. So I think enjoying sport, I suppose, for what it is, and I think just movement and all, just them little simple steps, and it mightn't, straight away. Everything, being patient, being consistent is so important. It's day in, day out in the little things that really, really make such a difference. And that realizing that you have the control. Because I think before with me as well, I was like, I felt so out of control, and that realizing bringing it back to being like, there's so much stuff you can control that can make you feel better. And we worry about things that are out of our control all the time. We have anxiety about this and about that, whereas you have to just be like, okay, what can I actually do,
focusing on yourself, and I suppose
and the process as well.
You really found yourself, I suppose, when you got your injury. You really discovered who you were, and why you were participating in sport, and the real goals and the benefits of sport for you. Whereas
definitely.
That was probably overlooked a little bit before you had that injury.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was just in my own little world, and it was all about performance, and I felt if I didn't perform and I didn't win, that I was nothing, and it was all about. Whereas now, definitely, like it's funny because little things might happen for me, and I am the most chill person about them. Nothing phases me now or bothers me. When you go through, you kind of you just, I suppose, see everything from a different perspective. And now for me, like, because you have to enjoy the sport and have it, and it's good then when that passion does come back. And you can find that passion, some people in art or in music or whatever it might be, I suppose, but and then just like working on the process of the day-to-day things, and it's kind of like what you get into it then, and I think once you go on a start line and say, what, I've done everything I can and I've put the work in, you can feel good about yourself and get so much confidence from that. And I think a lot of people, the thing with people that have mental health difficulties, they actually really need to sometimes physically, I think, go outside their comfort zone and just try it, like as in doing something that they don't want to do, like getting up in the morning, for me, I don't know, I get such a buzz out of just going outside my comfort zone. When I push my body, it gives me, there's no feeling or other type, nothing can do it for me. Another thing I find good is like doing, it depends on the person, but for me, doing like some more extreme type stuff. So like in the morning going into the sea, and things that you don't want to do and that you feel, but I don't know, it just makes you feel more alive, I suppose, and it's something that sits.
And it's finding that thing really.
Yeah, I think it's finding it's different for everybody.
And that you can relate to and get that benefit from, really, isn't it? Brilliant. Kate, thank you so much. That's thanks. A fantastic interview, and we're delighted that you could join us on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for for listening to Waterford Sportsability Podcast, supported by Healthy Ireland. Be sure to follow us on social media at Waterford Sportsability and check out other episodes on all major podcast platforms.